What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Minecraft animation reaction. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. But today we will be reacting to Songs of War Episode 1 of Minecraft animation and bloopers. Well, no, not bloopers, but behind the scenes. Get it right, Dark, not bloopers. Bloopers comes at Episode 5. But we will be also reacting to behind the scenes. So, don't forget to go subscribe to Black Plasma Studios, link down in the description below. And also don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified of every video that comes out on my channel. Video. Yeah. But only if you enjoy this. And also, if there's an animation you want me to react to, let me know down in the comments below. Animation. Remember that. Not just like a normal music video or something. Just an animated music video or a normal animation. Kind of like this one. This one ain't really music related, I don't think. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched it. But here you go, dude. I'm reacting to it for you. I can't remember your name, but you know who you are. The memories, the ads. Yay, ads! I really love them. Totally. Okay, Ender Dragon, aka the Ender Knight, the Wither, the Nether, the everything. What is my?
They called him
Yeah.
Death Singer.
I really wish this series would have kept on going, but
home to many diverse people, strange creatures, and dangerous monsters, hidden among the shadows of dense forests, beneath the sands of treacherous deserts, and frozen within the ancient
nice
mountains of the north.
Kind of like the ones that we're gonna be getting.
And mysteries which have eluded our comprehension throughout the ages. Few of these mysteries, however, have attracted such fascination as the Ardoni species, for which the land shares its name. The Ardoni possess the unique ability to wield great powers known as songs.
And also Songs of War.
The
At least that's
strongest
where I
of
get
these
it.
powers were
Makes
referred
sense.
to as prime songs, and were deemed too powerful for the Ardoni to wield freely. Thus, they were given to the masters of the 4 Ardoni clans as a sign of peace and unity. Because of this, the clans were blinded to a great danger. From within the fires of the Netherrealm, an army set out to conquer the overworld.
The best out.
They vanquished the kingdoms and people of Ardonia as they spread across the land.
Ignore the pun there.
But they were not to remain unchallenged.
Now that was a cool aesthetic.
The Ender Knights returned during these dark times, long having been guardians of the overworld. The two opposing realms clashed with a fury of inconceivable power.
You know me, I do love a good fighting animation. Or fighting scenes and along with other things.
Yet the Nether had prepared well for this invasion. And even the legendary Ender Knights could not stop them. With no hope of victory, the kingdoms called upon the Ardoni to wield the prime songs. Reluctantly, the clans agreed and held a tournament to determine which Ardoni would become their champion and wield all 4 prime songs. One rose above the rest, persistent, cunning, and powerful. The champion had been found. When presented with the prime songs, however, he revealed himself as Ingressus, leader of the long-forgotten and dreaded Voltaris clan. Outraged, The Masters refused to give Ingressus the Prime Songs.
I can
due
understand
to
not
their
giving
misuse of such
songs
power
there in the
that they
way
had
that
vanished
he
long
kind of
ago.
lied to them, pretending to be something else in a way.
That night, while the clans debated their next course of action, Ingressus set out alone to reclaim the Prime Songs.
But he's already deadly without Prime Songs.
One by one, he slayed the masters of the Kaltaris, Sandaris, and Mindaris clan.
Run, run! That's not how you run! Ouch.
Through these dark deeds, he became known as the Death Singer. The fourth and final master, Aegis Nestoris, survived the massacre, thus protecting the last and most powerful Prime Song.
Most powerful?
The Ardoni.
Sorry for that slight interruption. My mom and dad called because they needed a little bit of my help, so I went and helped them, and now we're back with the reaction.
Mourned the tragedy.
Let's do this.
They vowed to hunt down the Death Singer
15
and
minutes.
to prevent him from obtaining the final Prime Song. It was at this time that the Voltaris clan returned from exile. However, even with their support, he knew that he was outmatched. With all of Ardonia now his enemy, there was only one place to turn. The Death Singer met with King Kronos of the Nether and formed the most powerful alliance ever known. And thus began the Great War. The Ender Knights rallied under King Rendor
Cool
and
dragons.
fought the Nether head-on. The humans reassembled their armies. The Ardoni clans wielded their songs of old. The Magnarites came from the south, the Felinas from the west. Some even say
Another cut because I had to sneeze like
was
crazy.
there.
Hero Bride. He was there. Isn't he everywhere?
But despite everything, the Death Singer and the Nether armies could not be stopped.
Okay, here we are.
The tides of this conflict turned after a young Ardoni joined the fight. Skilled with the songs, Achillean Nestoris was able to unite and lead the armies to victory, which earned him the name Tide Singer. With his
Death
leadership
Singer,
and the
Tide
Ender
Singer.
Knight forces, the Nether army was forced to retreat back into the Nether.
That's a
With
big
no
fight.
allies, the remaining Voltaris fell back to Mount Velgrin. Here, the Tide Singer fought the Death Singer alone, and both were defeated.
We'll probably hear more
The Prime
about that
songs were
later.
recovered and distributed amongst the clans once more,
And yes, I have seen all these,
signaling
but
an
it feels
end
good coming
to the
back to
Great
this.
War.
Man, that's a cool view. And a long intro. How long was that? 7 minutes. 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's see. This is pretty.
Peace was restored to Ardonia, and the time for rebuilding and healing began.
Lighting too is pretty.
By the Death Singer, however, will be felt forever. The Great War, 11th Wall of Time. Well, Hawken, I fail to see. Hawken?
Yes, exactly. So, you see what this means, Thalius?
Hawken, were you sleeping
Look
through
here. Where do the walls of time say the final duel took place?
Mount Velgrin?
Indubitably. Most legends, including these bungled walls of time, fail to state that the final duel took place on the mountain's peak.
Alright, so what does this mean?
I've heard rumors of a presence on the peak of Mount Velgrin. Being the naturally curious scholar that I am, I sent a few scouts to transform those rumors into facts. That was 2 weeks ago.
And what was their report?
There was no report! None ever returned! Why do you think that is?
I'm not entirely sure.
The Voltaris, Thalius! The Voltaris!
You think the Voltaris are at Mount Velgrin?
Indubitably. I'm aware you've been hunting Voltaris ever since the Great War ended. So, I brought you here to inform you of this lead.
It has been years since I lost the trail of the Voltaris. I should ride to Mount Velgrin and see for myself.
Hold up there, Thalius. Although I'm no chronicler, I feel it is my duty to accompany you and record what information we find. I would also like to discover the fate of those I sent to investigate.
There is a chance we will encounter the Voltaris. And who knows what other perils.
Fear not, Thalius, for I am prepared to fight.
That's a derp move.
Wait, somewhere around here I have a weapon, unless I lost it.
Except
Ah,
derp would actually
here it
use
is.
that as a weapon.
Very well. Come on then. Most likely this was all just a misunderstanding.
That lighting is pretty. Not time for the long journey. And a long talk too. That's an interesting area. It must be an undead area in a way. Judging by the amount of mobs there during the day. Not that cool. Okay. We've arrived.
This is where I sent the scouts. Right here, Thalius.
Someone was here. Recently. I found their supplies.
How peculiar. Why would they leave their belongings where others might find them?
Because they are still here.
Ooh. Voltaris?
You must be Thalius Sandaris. I've heard many things about you.
And I have heard nothing about you.
Oh, I know. I've made quite sure of that. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tigran Voltaris. As for you, Thalius Sandaris, I know who you are, champion. And I know what you've done to my clan. Your sword has slain many of my brothers, and once I killed you, I will take it and slay twice as many of yours!
Wow. That's cool. Like I say, I always enjoy the fights. Well, that shield was destroyed quickly. Not the funny one.
So many years have we prepared for this, and you are not about to interfere.
Sadly, the funny one had to. Yeah. Why? These animations are so good because of the quality, the smoothness. It's just all perfect. And the storylines too. Other than having the funny ones go, that's the sad part. To be continued. Whenever I react to part 2, now let's go react to behind the scenes.
War was a story I've been wanting to
Okay,
tell
here we
for
are.
years, even before I was creating Minecraft animations. The vision from the beginning was always to make a universe that the viewer could engage in. The world was built fully to scale so people could one day explore it all. The characters were designed in such a way that the skins could easily be worn in-game. I don't think anything quite like this has been done before, so there was a lot of risk going in.
I haven't seen anything
Fortunately,
like this
the
before.
project created a lot of excitement, and we were able to put together a team to create something which I think is truly unique.
Okay, just by
Hey
that, I know
everyone,
this is gonna
David
be awesome.
here, director of Songs of
Oh.
War, and welcome to the behind the scenes of
Hi,
episode
Dave.
1. With each episode, we'll be releasing a behind the scenes to explore the episode, show how it came together, and hopefully provide you with some more insight on how everything was made. The series opens with a prologue,
That's a
a
cool
narration
scene right
detailing an
there.
important event
The
in the
lighting
world's
and all
history.
that stuff.
I talked a lot with my co-director Samuel Kyber about whether to do a prologue at all, as it's kind of a lot of lore dump real quick without meeting any actual characters, but we felt it was almost necessary because of how different this world was and things need to be explained like songs. The other function of it was to set up almost a sort of preview of what this universe can be like, despite times having moved on.
And they did that?
The music in the series is completely an original score
Very
done by
well.
After Infinity, or Dan as we call him. We wanted to create a long, singular flow of music for the prologue, but also go between many different moods and establish some of the themes that we'll be hearing later in the series. The first version of the prologue was just the narration with some real basic piano beats set to screenshots taken from within the world. Nothing had even been animated.
Reluctantly, the clans agreed and held a tournament to determine which Ardoni would become their champion and wield all 4 prime songs.
The series, despite being mostly original lore, is based very closely on the lore established in core Minecraft. You know, there's the Nether, the End, the undead zombies, and skeletons, and a lot should be familiar to those who play Minecraft, but with just a lot more added on top. We did change a few things to better adapt our story. Some you've already seen, and others you'll be seeing later. There were a lot of really nice shots in the prologue, but one of my favorites
Yeah,
is
like
of the
that
Ender
one?
Knights walking out of the mist. I brought the light level down to the point where you only really see their silhouettes, and gradually the lights on their armor begin to illuminate as they get closer. I also added some volumetric lights to get the rays coming from behind them, some nice wet reflections on the floors to really exaggerate the colors of their armor, and faked some 3D dynamic mist by adding dozens of little 2D planes in a row.
Wow.
The Ender Dragon rig was a big improvement for us. The Ender Dragons are very important in this series, so there were a few things I had to do to make them really work with the story.
Yeah, they
First,
look
they
pretty
needed
cool.
to be each slightly unique so you could tell the different dragons apart. Just as important, however, was we needed a way to do better wings. Default Minecraft wings, they fold out kind of plainly, and they get in the way when you actually want the dragons to walk around. So when Zophie started working on the rig, we pushed for a more anatomically correct bone structure. This was the first GIF I put together comparing the old wing design to the new, and immediately I knew it was a success. And to this day, I
Yep.
think the Ender Dragon is one of the
That
best
looks
rigs in the
so
series, and you haven't even seen the best part yet. The Ender Dragon flame effects. This was one of the very few times where we actually used fire simulation, although I did a lot of tricks to save a bunch of render time and to make it more efficient. There's a bit of challenge, however, when setting up the opening shot, as the flames kept going in front of the Death Singer and covering him up. I ended up creating this rather strange cylinder collider shape to keep the fire going on either side of him, but still appear to be hitting the shield. In
That's
summary,
cool.
the prologue was long, took ages to organize, and it was actually one of the last things I left in production. That way I would have a lot of improvements from animating all the other scenes, and I could apply that knowledge to make the prologue the best it could be. When the prologue ends, we move to the Walls of Time, a location far in the north with these giant walls that tell the tales of the world's history. The design I had was that they were literally these huge walls of stone that were mined around when hollowing out the room. Every time a new historical event worthy of being recorded happened, they'd mine further along the back side of the room and carve out more walls to write more history. That's why in the far end of the place you can actually see some of the scaffolding and equipment where they're preparing to continue mining should the need arise for more walls. I wanted a really dark and cold look for the place, so these big monolithic walls
cool
really stood
how
out,
the
receding
animations
almost
are planned
entirely
and
out of
put
sight as they
together.
kind of disappear towards the ceiling. I think the color palette for the final renders for this scene was some of my favorites in the series, with the dark blacks kind of lit by the prismarine cyan colors and only periodically broken up by the warm orange from the lanterns. The prologue is then revealed to not just be a total narration, but rather it was a character reading off of one of these walls, which I think helps make it a bit more immersive that way. The story is read by Thalius, whose voice was just perfect for it.
They were given to the masters of the 4 Ardoni clans as a sign of peace and unity. Had some minor breaks there. Well, we can do it again.
Thalius Sindaris plays a major role in the series. He's very old, even for an Ardoni, and is one of the few people alive who was also alive during the events of the Great War he was just narrating about. We also meet one of his friends, Hawken. This was a character that went through a lot of rewrites. We bounced around a bit between
He's a
making
funny
him
character.
too silly or too serious.
Which is
We wanted
sadly
him to be a
gone
bit fun and eccentric, but not set too light of a tone so early in the series. One of his early designs we liked a lot until someone pointed out it was very similar to another character from television, so we redid him almost completely, which I think ended up with actually a nicer result. There were some interesting choices we had to make early on in the production, such as how much we'd be following Minecraft rules. Unfortunately, I don't think there's ever a clearly defined line, but we definitely erred on the side of more realism. People can't place cubic meters of stone everywhere. However, we do have the concept of an inventory. Hawken's able to draw both his fish and his weapon from his inventory. Weapons then exist on the bodies to free up inventory space as well as help identify characters.
That's cool.
Because they are still here.
The big climax of the first episode is at Mount Velgrin, where they discover the Voltaris are indeed still around, and we're introduced to Tigran Voltaris.
You must be Thalius Sindaris. I've heard many things about you.
After the Death Singer died, he rose up to lead the remaining Voltaris scattered and unorganized. This was his first design, but then we updated it to a slightly newer design to get kind of an angrier look and deeper colors. Then later we added better shading to all the Ardoni, which gave him a little bit of an older look. Most important, however, was making him a threat. When villains show up in Songs of War, they shouldn't always lose and be forced to retreat, but should actually feel dangerous and the confrontation is dramatic. This fight was done by Zillion. We thought it essential to work in a major fight sequence in the first episode, as they are a big part of the series.
It definitely worked out.
The fight
Okay,
sound
very
design
cool.
in general was a big improvement from our past animations. Dan and I recorded a lot of custom sounds, including metal hits and scrapes. We then used these elements and designed more stylistic sword hits and movements to make everything seem just that much more intense. Choosing the lighting for the final fight was a big process. I did tons of different environment ideas that First, I wanted it to be really snowy with an intense blizzard. That way, in the final shot, everything was just gonna kind of get lost in this big snowstorm as it fades to pure white. Unfortunately, none of these song effects were showing up well on the white background, so I went with one of the more dark nighttime ones so these songs and effects would really punch a bit better. I think this was a good choice because it also allowed for the nice moonlight rays, which helped frame shots. One thing I wanted to design for Songs of War was an efficient misty atmospheric effect. This was something I had tried many times during production of the series, but always failed. You can see my attempts resulted in intersecting lines, and when I tried it again, I had the same problem. I ended up cheating a little bit and having the noise mapped to the mist, which prevented the lines, but unfortunately led to a little bit of projection issues. Hopefully no one noticed. I also used a similar misty effect when fading to Northwind. Initially there was just a straight fade from white, but having it kind of come through the physical mist and reveal things more naturally was a lot better for transition. Tigrin's Energy Ball song was a very important one. It was made mostly of these spheres with displacement and some nice energy textures. On the outside are these rings that provide little bits of energy arcing around the core.
Core with displacement. Outer core for additional energy, adding the rings color, correct. Okay.
Dan created the sound design for all the songs, and we described these Aggressium songs as being very unstable. We wanted to show it being powerful and visually impressive, but not make it seem like songs were unbalanced. He has a powerful song, but it's very slow and relatively easy to evade. Also, Hawken is able to block it with a shield, although the shield is entirely destroyed and he seems to get hurt from it as well. It was extremely important for me to create a balance in the universe so that no character or faction seemed too overpowered.
Seemed too overpowered.
The other song we see being used is Thalius's Teleport. We wanted something real short and fast, more like a quick blink. It leaves behind these nice clean trails, but we also had to illuminate his skin to really get that bright flash of light. The sound here was mostly on the charge up. When the actual activation happened, we wanted a crack and an echo, like air rushing back into the void, similar to lightning strikes.
Yeah.
One of the other big effects showcased here, apart from the songs, was Thalius's enchanted sword. In Songs of War, we deviated a bit from Minecraft with our enchantments and gave them both an idle and an activated state. For Thalius, we wanted something pretty clean and elegant, so a basic aura surrounds his sword and it leaves behind a nice clean streak. I went through a lot of streak effects and tested it in old scenes, but you can see here that the automatic approach wasn't really that noticeable. I ended up doing something a bit more manual where I'd move this big stretchy thing along behind his sword. Eventually, later in the series, I did find an automatic way to do it that still looked pretty good. There's actually a little bit of this episode that got deleted very last minute. We wrote a bit where Hawken is kind of undeterred by Tigrin's threats. He just starts throwing some snowballs at him and brushes all the danger off. On paper, it was this nice little break in tension and a fun little moment with Hawken, but when we went to put all the scene together, we could see it was just completely breaking the mood. There wasn't a good way to shift from dark music to something comedic and then right back to dark without it just feeling kind of jarring.
My name is Tigrin Voltaris.
Yeah, we're not afraid of you. Thalius can take on all 7 of you. Right, Thalius?
Your insolence will be remembered, scholar. As for you, Thalius Sindaris, I know.
The opening to the series instead then ends on a dark tone. Hawken died, Thalius barely escaped, and the Voltaris are still out there. Thanks everyone for watching Songs of War Episode 1, as well as these behind the scenes.
No, thank you for creating something like this, because this was awesome. The Songs of War is just something different to go on with Minecraft in general, animations and all that stuff. But I hope y'all enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like. Also go subscribe to Black Plasma Studios, link down in the description below. Ignore the like thing. Didn't mean to say that, but whatever. See you all in the next reaction, whatever that will be. See you later.